Yo guys, what is up? Max on an Elden Ring video, and today we're going over my Messmer-inspired Pyromancer. This is a Dex Faith build that puts out some ridiculous damage. Now, this build is using Messmer's weapon, so just letting you know that I will be showing off its moveset. However, we are setting up this build so that you can get it cooking way before you fight Messmer. I'll show you exactly how, and then once you get Messmer's weapon, you can set up one of the highest damage builds that I've played. This build genuinely melts bosses. You can kill them in a single Ash of War use if you have all of the talismans and buffs set up right, and it's just a really fun build to play, and it's kind of cool to like cosplay as one of the big villains of the DLC. So in this video, we're gonna be going over everything that you need to know, and then the actual locations of how to get everything will be at the end of the video. So if you are looking to just learn about the build, you can do that, and then the locations will be at the end. Hope you enjoy the guide. Let's get right into it. So as I said, we're using Messmer's staff. This is the Spear of the Impaler. It does split physical and fire damage, where it primarily scales off of Dex with side scaling Faith and a little bit of strength. We're not really prioritizing strength for this build, but we do have enough to use it. But this is the Spear. Now, the Spear is very unique in that it's got kind of a normal Great Spear moveset on its R1. However, its R2 is a thrown spear. This is really nice because it's a ranged option, and it also leaves fire on the ground, so you can like dot enemies with fire and light them up. But the real reason to use this weapon is its Ash of War, which is like a multi-hit combo. Now, if you just tap the Ash of War, you'll do this spinning slash. This is enough to one-shot a lot of normal enemies in the DLC, and then if you keep tapping that button, you can enter into a multi-part combo where you stab, thrust your spear into the ground, do an explosion. That explosion has enough like knockdown damage that most enemies, even heavily armored ones, will be knocked to the ground, and then you can just easily follow up with another hit. This Ash of War is pretty disgusting, and there's a lot of cool ways that we can do to scale it to increase its damage to the maximum. Now, obviously, this is a weapon that you get relatively, I would say probably in the middle of the DLC. There's 10 remembrance bosses. Messmer is the 4th remembrance one, technically, if I'm not mistaken. So you can get it relatively early, but I want to talk about what to use prior to that if you want to kind of get into this build. And there's 2 weapons that you can grab really early on in the very first area. Once again, location at the end, but that is the back end, or the backhand blade, and the beast claws. Now, both of these are incredible weapons. The backhand blades, you can dual wield, and their moveset is one of my favorite. Anytime that I've been struggling on a boss in this DLC with the current weapon that I'm messing around with, I usually just pull out the backhand blades and beat the boss within 1 or 2 tries of using them. Their Ash of War is a really fast movement skill that you can use to very quickly close the gap. A lot of times in boss fights, a boss will do a move where they leave a little bit of an opening, but they're kind of a bit of a distance away. The back-end blades are amazing at closing the distance and getting poke off. And because we're kind of going with the Messmer theme, we're putting them on keen scaling with our Ash of War. This is going to give them great dex scaling, but it also leaves us open to use the Blood Flame Blade. Blood Flame Blade on these things look amazing. They kind of fit the Messmer theme, and they add the ability for the weapon to actually bleed on enemies. So we're getting the most of our scaling, we're getting that added fire damage, and we're getting bleed. We're getting all of the best of both worlds. And the buff actually lost pretty long time with this setup, which is really nice. The other option that you can use if you prefer them, this is primarily a preference thing, is the Savage Claws or the Beast Claws. It's kind of a similar deal. Their Ash of War is crazy. It's a multi-hit combo that synergizes really well with this build because it's, you know, very similar to the Messmer Spear. And when we Blood Flame Blade them, we get bleed and we get fire damage on them. So that is just kind of a ridiculous combo that we can use on this build. Those are our main weapons. For our seal that we're going to be using the new Fire Knight seal. This boosts Messmer Flame incantations of which we're going to be using 3 on this build. We've got the new Messmer Orb. This is a ridiculous one. It's great at just nuking groups. And it's a good starter if you're going to like enter a fight with an enemy that's unsuspecting. You can go in and start the fight with that for big damage. It does some poise damage. We've also got Rain of Fire on, which is a pretty cool Messmer incantation. Does fire. I'm going to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of this one just because the damage seems pretty inconsistent. But what I really do like is the Fire Serpent one. You can tap this to just send out a ton of them, and you can hold it to charge them up. And these have really good seeking. You've probably fought enemies that put them down. It's a really great way if you're about to engage within an enemy with your staff. You can send out the Fire Serpents, and then as those are charging in, you go in with your Ash of War, and you can do a lot of follow-up damage when you're using both of those together. So we're still keeping the like Pyromancer setup with this build, but we've also got some weapon options and some spell options, and mainly prioritizing the Spear of the Impaler because it is realistically the thing that's going to output the most damage on this specific setup that we're rocking. For the armor, the most important thing is hitting 50 poise at least. The reason for this is we have a very long Ash of War that's multiple hits, and we do not want to be getting hit out of it. This move does seem to have some hyper armor, but if we're below 50 poise, things can stagger us out of it. You'll see in a lot of the clips of me killing bosses that I actually am taking a hit or two during it, but I'm not getting knocked out of it because I have enough poise. Now, we want to have poise and also look good, so we're rocking the Messmer Helm for the like cosplay of it, and then the Fire Knight armor I like a lot more than Messmer's armor itself, and then we're rocking the Gauntlets of Solitude and the Greaves of Solitude. This give us a fair bit of poise and kind of a nice matching armor set that's still got some fire elements to it. If you want to just go for fashion, I actually really like Hoslow's Greaves with this set. It's got the like wraps around it that are red, and I think they match the top a little bit better. So that's my favorite look, but you know, it doesn't have quite enough poise, so the Solitude set is what we're going to be rocking on the bottom. For our talismans, we're using the Fire Scorpion Charm. This increases our fire damage, which is great. Millicent's Prosthesis, which boosts our dexterity, which our Spear of the Impaler has the best scaling off of dex, and it raises our attack power with successive attacks. When we're doing our Ash of War, we're going to be proccing this. We've got the Shard of Alexander, which boosts that Ash of War even more, and the Rotten Winged Sword Insignia, which greatly raises attack power with successive hits. Both of these can proc, and all of these are proccing off of this Ash of War to make it deal the absolute most damage. Now, in order to be able to get Rotten Winged Sword Insignia and Millicent's Prosthesis, you need to do a New Game Plus playthrough. So if you haven't done a New Game Plus playthrough, I would probably replace Millicent's Prosthesis with, you have a few options. You could go the Carrion Filigree Crest, which means that your skills consume less FP, so you can spam your abilities more. You could also go for the Flasks Canvas Talisman to boost your incantation damage. This is pretty nice if you want to focus more on spells. Or another cool option is going for the Axe Talisman. The Axe Talisman gives you 10% more damage on charge attacks, which counts for the Thrown Spear. So you can use that as well. And now that Thrown Spear does another 10% damage, which is pretty nice. All solid options. And lastly, if you just wanted some more survivability, you could slap in a Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman for more physical negation. There are a lot of cool options that you could use with this build, but my favorite setup, because I have done a New Game Plus run, is all of the highest damage boosting things, which is Fire Scorpion, Millicent, Shard of Alexander, and Rotten Winged Sword Insignia. For our flasks and buffs, we're going to be using the Wondrous Physic with the Flame Shrouding Crack Tier. This boosts our fire attack damage, and the Thorny Crack Tier, which boosts successive attack power. Both of these things will be proccing off of our Ash of War, giving us the maximum amount of damage. For our actual spells, we're going to be using Golden Vow. Golden Vow gives us increased damage and decreased damage taken. Flame Grant Me Strength increases our physical damage and our fire damage, and both of those stack multiplicatively with each other. These are the two buffs that you're going to want to have on yourself basically all the time when you're fighting hard enemies. It's not needed to buff up yourself when you're fighting just normal enemies. However, when you're fighting like super hard enemies, you're definitely going to make sure you have those buffs up for the most damage. And as I kind of went over earlier, we've got like Fire Serpent and Messmer's Orb as our main kind of fire dealers. There are other fire incantations that you can use, absolutely. There's more like normal fireball things, but I did want to more so focus on Messmer's Flame incantations. For your stat priorities at level 150, you're going to want at least 10 Arcane so that you can use Blood Flame Blade. We're going for 60 Faith to make sure that we're being able to cast Messmer's Orb, which cost or is needed to have 60 Faith to use. Minimum Intelligence, 50 Dexterity. This is going to give us increased cast speed and also help us scale the damage of our weapons. 14 Strength is the bare minimum amount of strength that we can use the staff. 21 Endurance so that we can equip some nice armor. 20 Mind so that we can cast all of our buffs without having to waste or having to drink a potion mid-buff. And then 45 Vigor is the amount of health, the most amount of health that I could fit. We still hit a soft cap on health, but 45 Vigor is helping out our health quite a bit. Now, I am higher level than 150 right now, so I've got a little bit more of everything. But you'll see that the stats are, kind of relatively balanced. We've got 60 Vigor, 40 Mind, 35 Endurance, 18 Strength, 60 Dexterity, 9 Intelligence, 80 Faith, and 8 Arcane. I do need to pump up my Dexterity a little bit. I was just trying to mess around with the things, but getting your Vigor up to 60 will definitely help you in the DLC, but getting that Faith and Dexterity up will also increase your damage quite a bit. Just note that going to 80 Faith is hard cap, so you're not going to be getting any more real points out of anything more than that, and 60 Dexterity is plenty, but you can get it a little bit more for a little bit more damage. Now we're going to talk about the locations for everything. I will be covering the locations for the new stuff. If I'm using base game stuff like Millicent's or Shard of Alexander, I'm not going to be covering where to get that. Those are relatively easy to find, but I do want to make sure that any of the new stuff in the DLC, you know exactly where to go for. So to start us off, if you want to get the Keen Beast Claws or the Beast Claws from the very starting Grace that you start out, the Graveside Plain, you're going to want to go to these woods right here. There's going to be a dude walking around that looks like Wolverine. If you kill him, you get these claws. Next up, to get the backhand blades, you're going to want to go from the starting Grace through these Scorched Runes, grab these Scorched Rune Grace, and then there should be a grave site. I'm pretty sure it's this one right here that's got a tomb on it, and right next to the tomb is going to be the backhand blades. For the Gauntlets of Solitude and the Greaves of Solitude, you're going to want to go from the starting Grace directly to the Western Nameless Mausoleum, where you can fight a knight that if you kill him, you get his armor, which is the Solitude set. The Fire Knight's armor can be acquired, I'm pretty sure, by killing the Fire Knights in Shadow Keep. They're fiery enemies. They look like they're wearing exactly this. It seems to be a rare drop. If you just keep killing a few of them, it'll eventually drop for you. Really cool looking armor piece. For the Fire Knight seal, you need to come to the Sunken Chapel. In order to get this, you need to start, I believe it's by the Church District entrance. You're going to hop on these rooftops, make your way through this area, and then on this balcony over here, there's going to be a lever that you can pull that will lower the water. This will allow you to jump down into the Sunken Chapel and then proceed through this courtyard where you're going to see a giant statue of Queen Marika. And then right behind the statue, there's going to be an item that you can grab that will be on this corpse. That will be your Fire Knight seal. For the Fire Serpent incantation, you're going to want to go to the storehouse back section, Grace. From there, you're just going to want to run towards this ladder and then climb it. Once you get to the top of the ladder, head right. We're going to run by all of the people that are reading their books here. Just keep going straight, and then right on this balcony, you're going to find the Fire Serpent incantation. And lastly, the Messmer's Orb and the Spear of the Impaler can both be found from killing Messmer. You're going to go through the storehouse sections, get to the higher floors, and then go to the Messmer's Dark Chamber. Once you kill him, you get his remembrance. You can go dupe that remembrance at a bunch of places. If you're in base game, you can go grab any of the turtles and dupe the remembrance. There's remembrance dupes in a bunch of the coffins. If you go to the Finger Runes of Rhea, you can go down to a coffin that's kind of right here. And then dupe that remembrance, and that'll allow you to get both Messmer's Spear and the Flame Orb, so you don't have to pick one or the other. You can get both. Best of both worlds. Guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what kind of build you want to see next. I did get recommended to do a build like this from a viewer in the comments in my last video. So if there's some kind of playstyle that you particularly are having a hard time making work or want to see, let me know and I'll try to make a build video to the best of my abilities. I'll catch y'all in the next one, guys. Take care. Peace.